And there we go. Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Sunday night, second live stream today. We had quite a bit of rain that we had to deal with. And in fact, I have up the current radar, which shows one last blossoming area of showers and possibly even some thunderstorms developing over parts of southwest Jersey. You can see them here in the I wouldn't call it necessarily a line. This is sort of the back edge of the rain and the weather front that's gradually pushing on through. And it looks like there's going to be one more round of heavy downpours moving through parts of south and central New Jersey. And they may clip central and eastern Long Island and southeastern Connecticut in the next couple of hours as this area moves on to the north and east. So I may get into some of this stuff, and I'm just kind of keeping my eye on the local weather service offices. A lot of New Jersey is under a flood advisory, central and south Jersey, and down into Delaware and eastern Maryland. But there are also some flood warnings up in central Delaware and in eastern Maryland as well. And there's one area that's just south of the Washington, D.C. area. Would not surprise me to see some flood warnings go up for parts of central New Jersey in the next hour as this area moves on through. Rainfall amounts today were quite impressive for the month of February, which is usually a month is not known for its big rains. But because you have the pattern that we have, where the flow is basically feeding in moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, we did very well, probably one of the heaviest rains we've seen here in quite some time. 3 to 4 inches, quite commonplace over much of central and south Jersey, so 4 to 5 inch amounts over central Delaware and in corresponding eastern Maryland. You can see it here in the darker reds, at least off the Doppler estimates, some 5-inch estimates there, and even some 2 and 3 inch rain amounts over parts of Long Island and along coastal Connecticut. You start to go north and west of there, and the amounts were much less, but looks like everybody got an inch plus. One of the interesting things today was the fact that the cold air that drained down from upstate New York into the Hudson Valley, where we had temperatures in the 30s, while temperatures in central and south Jersey in many places reached up into the 60s today. And we even made middle 50s across Long Island. So it was quite the startling contrast in temperatures. And here's the wide radar view. And let me bring that up for you. Here's the wide radar view at the moment. So you can see this is sort of one last gasp of showers that is developing here on the southern end. That weather front is just about approaching the coast, and gradually it'll be sinking southeastward and offshore. It's not doing it in any big sort of a rush. So clearing is going to be very, very slow on the uptake here. And when we look at what's happening across the rest of the country tonight, we'll bring up the current National Weather Service watches from their homepage so you can get the basic extent of watches and warnings. We have winter weather advisories up through parts of Kentucky. We also in the colder air, and we have still some flood watches up for parts of Georgia, northwestern South Carolina, western North Carolina, southern Alabama, and looks like a few flood advisories and flood warnings on the Florida Panhandle. It stopped snowing in Chicago after 9 consecutive days. Winter weather advisories up for parts of Maine. We also have some dense fog advisories up in my neck of the woods. In the Northwest, we will have wind chill advisories across the from Minnesota on westward into Montana. Some winter weather advisories up into northern Montana, parts of Nevada, parts of western Colorado. But otherwise, the weather remains relatively quiet in that neck of the woods. I thought we'd look at tonight, because I really didn't spend any time on it in the earlier live stream, but we've been trying to get a grasp of what is or is not going to happen during the long range. And we'll start tonight with these volatile teleconnections. And what's happening is every time we get a model run from the GFS where the ensemble GFS model runs show the ridge off the west coast in the Gulf of Alaska coming inland, that has caused the occasional spikes in the PNA that we keep seeing forecasted, and it turns out not to be the case. And we come back to the fact that the Pacific North America Index, or the PNA, is going to be basically negative right through almost to the end of the month when it starts spiking up toward the neutral line. And then, of course, we have the other question here, which is the fact that the North Atlantic Oscillation, will it or won't it go into some kind of a blocky pattern as we head toward the end of the month? And today's NAO basically showed that trending toward neutral and going slightly negative toward the end of the period. But I would be really suspect of this until I start to see it happening. I'm not really going to be very confident at all about that possibility. And we have the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, which is still somewhat negative, then kind of straddles the neutral line once we get to about February 19th, and then kind of hovers that. This is probably reflecting the idea of the pattern that we're in continuing. That is, we are going to just continue to see transient shots of cold air. The cold air will be more sustained to the west and north, up in the plains, the Great Lakes. I think you're going to probably still see, snow events the way they've been evolving, and that is coming out, where the lakes region, western New York, on up into interior New England will have some chances here. The coastal cities of the Northeast, at least from now until this pattern shows a sign of a real change, I think the only way you're going to wind up with any kind of snowfall is going to be a matter of perfect timing, where if you get one of these cold shots to come down, and if there's some sort of wayward energy around, it would have to time out absolutely perfectly in order for something to happen. So why don't we take a look at where the GFS is going to be taking us on its latest adventure, and we'll see if we can, make heads or tails of all of this. Let me just get that just a bit wider for you guys, and we'll bring up the upper air. And the key going forward has been this strong ridge that is in the Gulf of Alaska and shows no sign of breaking down. And when we look at this on the widest view, as we look at North America, and I actually have it jumped ahead to Wednesday, you see where the flow is coming from, right out of the Pacific and comes right across the U.S. The cold air is really pretty much trapped up in Canada. You get these troughs that swing around. So every time you get a trough to come through here in the east, you wind up with a shot of cold air behind it. But since there's no real cold air ahead of it, we're talking rain. And notice, when you look out near Alaska, that purple area that you see there in the Gulf of Alaska, that represents that upper high, that ridge that is just absolutely stubborn. You've got a trough that's just west of Hawaii that's forcing that ridge up through the Gulf of Alaska, and we are now at next Sunday, and it's still there. And we will move through next week. And when I say next week, I'm talking about the week of the 19th. There's your deep trough in the west and an absolutely powerhouse ridge that builds up in the eastern part of the United States. It's the ridge in the east seems to be back, and it's going to stay there until something comes along and gets it out of the way. You do show the model does show something trying to come into that ridge around the 23rd, 24th, and you see how that corresponds with the ridge in the Gulf of Alaska kind of turning eastward into the Pacific Northwest. So that, again, is that real or is that not real? It remains to be seen. The ridge does disappear when we get toward the end of the month, and maybe at this point, chess pieces may start to move around. But now on the other side, on the Atlantic, through all of this, there's no real indication of any kind of blocking going on, at least not yet. That may change on subsequent runs, but it may not. The NAO is probably the most elusive of all these indicators, the way things have been working out. So I at this point, I think the best way to kind of approach all this is to just wait until we get any kind of model signal that there's going to be something different down the pike. Until that happens, you can't, based on what's being shown by not just the GFS but by the European, it's really a tough sell to get out of this. Now here we look at Europe in the meantime, and we keep seeing these deep troughs that come in, and here's a powerhouse coming into this week. Very cold upper air flow here, dominating the northeast Atlantic, and that is going to continue. Now you start to get some ridging that builds toward day 7, and that actually moves into Western Europe, so there might be a bit of a break there, but a little bit of a blocking high that develops in northwestern Europe here. This could be the beginnings of what might be an east-based block. I don't know. Again, there's just too many variables going forward. So why don't we go to the surface map as we take a look at the European weather through all of this. And there is a storm sitting in the North Sea moving into Scandinavia here at the moment, and that is bringing some cold air into the British Isles, and there's going to be some snow on Tuesday, and then we get another push later in the week of moisture, high pressure that eventually builds in, though, in the long range as that high starts to build in the upper atmosphere in Western Europe. And with respect to snowfall in Europe over the next 7 days or so, still at it, but not as bullish as it was perhaps 3 or 4 days ago. Snow amounts in the usual places, some snows through France and up and through the Alps, and also through northern England and up through Scotland, a little bit of snow in Ireland, but nothing too crazy here being indicated by the GFS model. Back home, we'll give you the full U.S. view with regards to snowfall, at least from what the model is showing, and all the bulk of any snow is going to be up in the northern Rockies. You can see there's a stripe that runs right along the Canadian border into southeastern Canada, which is typical, but the southern end of this kind of cuts off near Chicago or just south of Chicago, southern Michigan, western New York, central and northern New England, upstate New York are in it, but you go further south, there really isn't too much happening. Some of this being indicated for parts of the mountains, eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, southeast Ohio, southwest PA, with weather systems that might be impacting. So why don't we take a look at what it's doing at the surface going forward. And let's get to the first day. So here's our weather system now, and here's some ice and snow that the model develops tomorrow morning, reflecting that snow that we see in eastern Kentucky and into parts of West Virginia. Some of that snow, some of that is sleet. So I don't know how much of that is actually going to be in terms of accumulation. And that also corresponds with those winter weather advisories we looked at. Action coming into the Pacific Northwest around Wednesday. You start to see the next weather front and weather system heading up into the western parts of the Ohio Valley, west of the Appalachians, with a weather front that comes through here with more showers late this week. Some snow on the backside that completely dies out before it reaches the coast. And then you get this next shot of cold air. More action into the northwest, right along the border, which kind of makes sense in this pattern. Shot of cold air behind it. There's another low that runs up the west side of the Appalachians and on up into western New York as we get to day 10. So you get the idea, folks, here. This is not a pretty pattern for snow lovers in the east for sure. And again, the only way I think you'll see anything over the next 10 days to 2 weeks is if somehow models are a little off by certain, by even I don't know. I don't even know how to phrase it. It doesn't seem to me like the models are going to be off by that much. So unless there's some real shock when one of these cold mass air shots come in, if it comes in and orients itself in a certain way, and there's maybe a little bit of energy running along, that really will be the only way you're going to see anything out of this. So the problem is that we are at February 11th now, and if we're talking about a pattern that's going to be basically stuck for the next couple of weeks, if it's going to change, it's going to take you into the first week of March, and then Then for you snow lovers and you winter weather lovers, the clock is really beginning to tick. So it doesn't look very good at the moment. So let me jump on board here. Lots of rain for Mirtha Gunter, and yes, lots of rain for me too, Mirtha. As did Shelly Man Studios. And yes, you had that cold air, that yellow Yakubov. You had that cold air that just kind of drained down up from upstate New York. It was in the low 30s. They actually had winter weather advisories up from Dutchess County northward for a little while, and that now is done. Let's see. We've had 3 days close to 20 inches of snow, Pete Frisella, and we've had 51 for the season. Yeah, you were in that range up there in Michigan, Detroit, Chicago. Chicago had 9 consecutive days of measurable snowfall, which is a new record. And also, I saw Rockford, Illinois, had a similar. So I think it was 7 days in a row for them. Amazing. And I don't know about what Sebastian P. You've been in jail. Okay, Facebook jail, YouTube jail, or jail. Hopefully, it's one of the first two and not the third one. And yeah, there's no snow going on of consequence in at the moment that I could see. Let me see. When will the cold air be making its return, Shelly Man? Again, it's going to be these transient shots that are going to come in and in the east here and last only for a day or two before they pull out. It's just not happening. You've got the ridge in the Gulf of Alaska. Until we see that decisively break down and change, you got a problem. And you're going to have this ridge off the southeast coast. So you're going to have both those things break down. It's likely if the ridge in the Gulf of Alaska breaks down, it'll correspond with a breakdown in the ridge off the southeast coast. I mean, that would seem to be the logical thing to happen. Also, is the NAO going to come into play, which is probably still the one wild card. But I got to tell you, I'm just, I'm not encouraged by these model runs, which day after day remain virtually unchanged with all of this. Crazy in South Jersey, Corey Bodziak. Yeah, you're getting that last round of downpours going through right now. And Ray Higby, good to see you here. Yeah, there's potholes opening up all over the place here. I hit a few of them over the last couple of days, and they're going to be more over the next couple of weeks. Very bipolar on the Shelly, literally Shelly Man Studios. Yes, I wouldn't disagree with that. And let's see. Corey had his windows open all day with temperatures that reached 62. I noticed, yeah. Well, everything's the spring, the early spring plants, daffodils, and some of the early blooming tulips and so on. This is about the time where they begin to poke their heads out of the ground. So none of that should not be a surprise. That happens every year. Ray C., how does it look for snow or cold for the Adirondacks? Well, you know what? You stand a better chance in this pattern, Ray. I'm since really not much is changing, and you've been able to get some snow shots up in through upstate New York, particularly north of I-90. I don't see that changing anytime during the next couple of weeks. You'll probably see some more. So, central upstate New York, interior, central and northern New England, I think are going to be, are going to continue with the snowy pattern that you've been in. But that's kind of where the southern edge of it's going to be. The stratospheric warming, the split, that's all happening. The problem is, David Schwartz, that you're getting it it's happening where it's favoring the flow down to the lower levels of the atmosphere to come in from off the Pacific and come up from the south. The polar vortex seems to want to wind its way up into more into the western parts of Canada than in the eastern parts of Canada, and that's problematic. So you could see, this is the thing, as you know, I've kind of said this over and over again. You could have all this stuff happening, but if at the end of the day your troughs and ridges are in the wrong spot, it ain't going to help you. And I think that's where we're at right now. We're just kind of waiting to see if after the next week to 10 days, if we're going to start to see something change. I got to tell you, I'm not that encouraged from what I'm seeing. And yeah, David, the stratospheric split as a result is basically reinforcing the current pattern that we're in. At least that's what it seems to be doing at the moment. Now, a couple of weeks down the road, it might be pointing to a change, but remember, then the clock's ticking because we're going into March. And as each day goes by in the month of March, setups it's hard enough to get setups during the regular winter season when you have the right pattern. When you don't have the right pattern, it's almost impossible. So you start to, you start to deal with climatology, you start to deal with the natural warming of the atmosphere. It's not to say that it's impossible to get snowfalls. Of course you can get them, but you're going to have setups that really line up perfectly. So again, looking for signs of that happening, but not seeing it at the moment. Kevin Francis planning a ski trip in March. I need snow. My granddaughter's first ski trip. Okay. Do the best you can. Well, you're going up into ski country. You're going to have plenty of it. So hopefully, if the pattern remains the way it is, and you're going up into ski country in upstate New York or in central northern New England, you should be fine. Sorry to hear about your problems, Sebastian. Glad they seem to have been resolved. So that's that. Well, at least somewhat resolved. So let's hope. Okay. Going on to great snowmobiling. One of these years, Racy, I'm going to give it a try. And you're going to West Virginia, William F., for skiing. I'm not too familiar with the West Virginia in terms of, I know I don't know how much snow they have up in the mountainous areas there. I'm sure they have some. But definitely if you go up to upstate New York and New England. The MJO Alicina in phase for a long 7. Yes, the MJO has been kind of stuck in this phase 7. Everybody has been waiting for it to go to phase 8, and it doesn't want to do it. It could still do it. And at the same time, if you don't have any kind of polar connection to it, it might not matter. Okay. It might not. What's out there right now is, for snow lovers, is very discouraging. But you never know. You could wind up with a surprise along the way if something lines up right. But at least for now, all we can do is just kind of sit back and wait. Bobby Livingsworth, long range model showing a colder March for the East. Well, that may very well be, but we got to see the change happen. Until we see the change happen, it is. Right now, I don't see any signs of that. Every once in a while, we get thrown a GFS run that shows some blocking. It did that once yesterday. But I'm not seeing consistent runs trending in that direction. So until we do, we'll just going to have to, go with the flow. Ray C., you're in the Saratoga area. Awesome. And I'm usually up in the Saratoga area during racing season. So I'll be up there sometime in late July or in August. I love going up to Saratoga to the racetrack. It's just so much fun. And Saratoga is just a great experience. If any of you have never done that, I would, and if you like horse racing, it is definitely the place to be. Jay Peak, Vermont, 55 inches in the last week. Amazing. The ski areas have just had, phenomenal ski conditions. And oh, I do actually, Shelly, man, I do have chicken in the oven. I do have something cooking. I got chicken leg quarters. They're just about done because I want to nibble on something. Haven't had my dinner yet. All right, folks, going to call it a night. Have a great Monday. We still got time to go watch the Olympics for a little while. We've got some website posts, as always, on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. By the way, I just want to mention, if you link, it doesn't cost you a dime if you do shop on Amazon, and if you'd like, if you link to Amazon from my website, Amazon will buy me a cigar. So that's a great way of, if you want to show a little support and throw me a cigar or two, you can let Amazon pay for it. Jeff Bezos will buy me one with whatever purchases you make. So that doesn't cost you a dime. So just put it out there. Don't feel obligated. The cat, Ray C, if you haven't been around for a while, Kovo's gone. He died about, now we're going about 6 weeks ago from his diabetes. It just got out of control, and his kidneys his kidneys shut down. William F., just if you go to meteorologistjoecioffi.com, you'll see Amazon. There's an Amazon link there on the page. At the bottom of the page, there'll be some weather instruments that are listed there, but there's also a search box. So if you do any kind of shopping on Amazon, you can do it. If you do it through there, Amazon will basically give me enough to buy a cigar or two, and that would. And a big thank you to any of you who do that. Yes, the poor cat. Yeah, the diabetes. K-Kina 100, very, very hard to control with the cat, as I've discovered. We just could not get his sugar right. We'd be okay for a couple of weeks, and then he would have a major crash, and then he would lose more weight. He was almost 20 pounds, and by the time he was done with it in a couple of months, he was down to 5 pounds. I mean, he just basically wasted away. It was very sad. He was a great cat too. I mean, he was just amazing. He was more like a dog than a cat. And my dog is gone also, so kind of without pets at the moment. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, they become part of your family. They are part of your family. And 99 Wolves, I get it. Believe me. And for all of you, those of you who have pets, you get it. And even if you don't, I'm sure you understand. So anyhow, one day we'll get a new cat, and one day we'll get a new dog, and we'll start all over again. Oh yeah, diabetes in cats, Shelly Man Studio, is apparently rather common. If you start to see that they're eating a lot and their appetite is ravenous and they're constantly drinking water, that could be a sign that they have diabetes. So it kind of showed up with him all of a sudden. And the thing is, in some instances, the diabetes actually goes into remission and disappears. But in the meantime, you're trying to figure out, how much insulin you got to give them every day, and you can't give them pills. You got to give them injections. So we were giving him injections twice a day, and after over 5-6 weeks of doing that, it just stopped working. Okay, have a great what's left of your Sunday, and you got the nice week ahead. So I hope everybody has a great week ahead. We'll be on tomorrow night at our usual time, 6 o'clock Eastern. And again, you just check out meteorologistjoecioffi.com for the latest posts. And we'll be also on Facebook. You can check out Facebook. And the links are at the top of my YouTube channel page. You can see the links are on the banner, so you can click on those and head on over there if you'd like. All right, steady up, Shelly Man Studios. If you got a math exam, you shut off the video and go study, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck on your test.